All right, we are live. Unscheduled live stream. This is what we do now. This is what we do. Most pressing questions for Dungeon Masters moving into 2026. All right, we have audio. It is confirmed. All right, I can close that window. We can just get it. Nobody in the chat right now. That is not unexpected because there was no warning of this. I'm just dropping into the live stream today. We're doing this more and more because I wanted to do it, and I think it's awesome. All right, I've got some questions here about D&D and the state of TTRPGs as we move into 2026. This is what we're going to talk about. Giving myself a moment to acclimate. And we're going to dive in and talk about it, okay? First of all, well, let me actually go back to my list here. Where's my list? Did I lose it? I think I lost it. It's okay. I'll find it again. In the meantime, feel free to drop your questions into the chat. If anyone is there, if anyone wants to drop their stuff into the chat. Uh, 2026 is right around the corner. And as we move into 2026, there are going to be a lot of questions. And I'm going to dive right into them here. I finally found my list. Question number one. What are the emotional stakes at my table? And do my scenes serve them? Okay. What are the emotional stakes at my table? And do my scenes serve them? So I think that emotional stakes are important. In my book, The Advanced Art of TTRPG Game Mastery, which you can find a link to in the description. And then you can, if you click on that link, you can read about it and read about what it is. But basically, it's about building emotional resonance in games. And so I think emotional stakes at the table are underutilized. I think they're underappreciated. I don't think that people use emotional stakes enough in their games. I think that a lot of times we get too focused on the details, like the miniatures, the dice, the maps. Maps are important, don't get me wrong, but emotional stakes are going to become really important to the craft. Why? Because we're moving into an age where video games are going to become more and more important, or more and more like mainstream. People are going to be able to get more immersive experiences in video games than ever before. That's just what's going to happen as we move into 2026 and beyond. So if people want to just play a video game, like why play a TTRPG when you can dive in and play very immersive video games? It's going to be important to set TTRPGs apart moving into 2026. And emotional resonance is a huge part of this. Emotional stakes are a huge part of this. Having the human experience is going to become a crucial part of this. And I think that this is underappreciated in the community. I really think that's true. I don't think people are talking about it enough. So that's my answer to the first part of that. What are the emotional stakes at my table? Do my scenes serve them? Do your scenes serve them? Here's an example from my game, The Darkest Dawn, that's going on right now. If you want to play in one of my games, by the way, my start playing link is in the description. You can join me playing one of my games. I have a bunch of games posted right now, and I'm super pumped to get them filled up. But I have one game full right now and start playing The Darkest Dawn. It's a gritty, grimdark sandbox game taking place in my homebrewed world state of Regenesis. But, oh, hey, how's it going? So, nice surprise, live cast. Yeah, these days I can't schedule these because my schedule's so crazy. I just have to fit them in when I can. So great to see you. Great to see you. But like, how do my scenes serve the emotional stakes in that game? Well, I take from people's backstories. That's the first thing. And I'm using their backstories to try to build like game content that's going to emotionally appeal to them. And what does that mean? It just means that it matters to them. Like you make it matter because we're telling a shared story. I cannot reiterate this enough, how important this is as we go into 2026. It's so important that we do not treat our TTRPGs like just a video game. Like it has to be set apart, because video games are going to get too good. The experiences that people have playing like kind of a strategic, minis game, that can be easily replaced as we move forward. I follow you on your Discord channel, loving the latest videos for your session 0. I'm getting ready to GM my first campaign and using a lot of notes from your videos in my session 0. Awesome. Session 0 is super important. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, because that's what I'm doing today, answering questions. But I'm super glad that it's been serving you and you've been finding it useful. Session 0 is how you get started building a great foundation. It's not always super important if you're playing with people you've been gaming with for years, but it's super important, especially if you're playing with new players, or if you want to evolve your game style. You just cannot go wrong by having a great session 0. All right, let's go on to question number 2 here. I put together these questions, trying to think ahead. Like, what are we going to be dealing with in the future as we move into the future? How inclusive and represented is my game space? Okay. My notes here are as such. The hobby is evolving. As noted by industry commentary, there's increasing demand for diverse representation, inclusive play styles, and culturally rich settings. Here's the thing. What happens in pop culture is going to make its way to the game table. What happens in our society is going to make its way to the game table. I don't know about you, but this is a trend that I've seen over the past 20 some years. What is going on in the world is going to make its way into your game, because players are going to have thoughts about it. They're going to have ideas about it. And some of them are going to be passionate about some of those ideas, and they're going to want to role play some of those things. And so I treat this no different than I've always treated this. I welcome new ideas. I welcome people pushing the boundaries. I welcome cutting edge role play. I welcome edgy role play, right? I like my games to be a little dark and gritty. I like a good dose of existentialism and violence in my games. And I like for people to get out there a little bit, to kind of get out there. And I don't care what it is, right? I did a video not too long ago about, is D&D becoming too woke, right? And basically I was covering a news piece about that. A lot of people say that D&D is getting too woke. Here's what the problem is. The problem is when you start trying to force things into the game, right? When you start trying to force things on your players, that's when it's going to get weird. It's going to get weird. I think that's happening in some places. And sometimes, in some ways, I think the people who make the games are doing this to a certain extent. This does not have to be how your table is run. What I like to say is bring what you've got to the players. Like, bring what you've got. Feel free to push the boundaries. I'm here for it. I have my lines and veils, which are pretty simple, right? There are a few things I do not allow in my games at all, but those are pretty extreme things. For the most part, I'm going to let players be as inclusive and representative as they want of whatever they're trying to do in the game. And, I like that. And I think that game masters who are uncomfortable with that, they're either going to need to find players who really fit their style, or they're going to have to get more inclusive, because we're going to start seeing more of these things at the table. And I'm here for it, but that's just the truth of it. SKWPG says, question, how do you determine that a player will fit into your campaign on a pre-session 0 and or just a session 0? Do you make the decision quickly, or are you patient, taking time to determine fit? Okay, this is actually a really good question. Here's what I say. I go with my gut instinct. When I'm talking to them, when I'm hanging out, the truth is 90%, maybe 95% of the people who are in this hobby are good, and they're a pleasure to game with. That's been my overall experience. We may not always hit, on the same notes all the time, but as a general rule, most people are pretty chill and cool to game with. With that being said, I will say this. If you get a bad feeling about a player in session 0 and you're like, I just don't know, this is weird, this is a weird thing, that's when you should maybe think about maybe, saying we're not a good fit. But I'm going to also tell you this. I've had situations where I've had a bad feeling about a player, like where I joined them in session 0 And then they got in the lobby, and I talked to them. And in the first minute, I thought, oh my God, this is not going to be a good fit. I have literally had that thought about some gamers. And then I've had that, I've turned out to be wrong. I've had it turn out to where I just like let it go. And then it turned out fine. So the way that I generally run it is, unless I have a really good reason, I generally let them come on through to the game. But it's like, so there's a saying in business: hire fast, fire faster, right? And I kind of believe that about D&D. It's like, accept fast, but then, like, basically, if they're a problem player, cut them out of the campaign faster. Like, that's the real test, right? It's very awkward to say yes to someone and then game with them for 2 sessions and then to have a conversation with them about, I don't think this is working out. The truth is, our table and you are not a good fit, right? That's a hard conversation to have, but I would much rather have that conversation on the back end of 2 sessions than I would filtering someone out, beforehand. And then, like, if I'm not absolutely sure about it, because it is a little hard to tell. It's a little hard to tell. And even your instincts, like, I have had my instincts be wrong about players. I really have. So, and I have pretty good instincts. And it's especially hard over virtual, right? It's a little easier if you're going to be having a game at your house and then someone is like weird and you don't want them over to your house. That's a very simple thing. It's like, I don't want them at my house. Obviously, it's not going to work out. But virtual is different. You don't have to have them over to your house. You're just having them into your digital space. And even then, it's very easy to like X-nate them, right? If it doesn't work out. So that's my answer to that. I hope that gives you, a good answer. Another question I have on my list here is, what blend of digital and analog tools will GMs be using as we move into 2026 and beyond? And then how can I manage the transition with these tools? Okay. I actually believe we're going to see a resurgence of people playing together physically. I think VTTs are really cool. They're not going to go away. People like me, like, VTTs are really awesome for people like me, because I like to be able to schedule a thing. I like to be able to network with people all over the world. I love playing together with people from different places. And I think that a lot of game masters feel this way. With that being said, I do think we're coming around to a place where in-person gaming is going to become like a local commodity. Like, I really believe that game masters, moving into 2026 and especially beyond that, they're going to find a resurgence in interest of people who want a game with a character sheet and some dice. They want to have a very analog experience, no digital. And then you have your old school maps, and then you get together and you play mostly theater of the mind in person, or you have your battle map and your minis, whatever. I think there's going to be a resurgence of this. I think that people are going to value this more. I think what you're going to find is that people who, like, I think there's going to be game masters going to business networking meetings for the sole purpose of recruiting players for their games. And then especially pro GMs. I believe pro GMing is going to become a huge thing in the future. I really think it is. I've gotten into it. It's awesome. You can find my games links in the description if you want to play one of my games with me. But here's the thing. I think that running in-person games for people, like, you go to business networking as a pro GM, you meet people, you shake their hand, and you say, hey, I am so-and-so, I'm a dungeon master, and basically I'm looking for people who would be interested in playing a game of D&D with me. Like, this would be so fun to pitch at a business networking meeting. But the segue is, you get these business owners to, like, play your game. And then after the game, you offer them a free game. You give them all like a business card or promotional kit or package to say, hey, if you have a party coming up, you have an event coming up, you want to do something special for your VPs, I'll run one-shot D&D for you. I have this awesome space, I have this awesome stuff, or I can come to you, I have all the gear. Hey, hit me up. It was great to play with you. I think that's going to be a thing in the future. I really do, because it's going to become commoditized in a way that, like it's been in nerd culture for so long, but TTRPGs are going to go more mainstream. I really believe that's the truth. Okay. So that's my answer to that question. The next question on my list is, what my game master voice in 2026? Am I being authentic rather than performative? I think that this is a question that game masters are going to really start to ask themselves, especially when we're watching people play D&D online, when we're watching Critical Role and watching these other groups, is there going to be an element of like copying them, or can you find your own unique voice? Are people even going to want to game with you if you're being unique to yourself, true to yourself? I believe it is yes, and I think there's going to be a lot of people who are basically going to emulate Critical Role. That's never going to stop. There are going to be other groups that are going to rise to the top. They're going to have really powerful voices, and people are going to emulate them, and they're going to vie for that market share, like that market space. Critical Role has really done an incredible thing in becoming as popular as they become, but they're not going to be the only ones. There are going to be many, many others who are going to, come into that space. And so, they're going to be different, and they're going to become a player in that space, not because they copy Critical Role, but because of what they do different from Critical Role. And then, so we as game masters, we have to take a clue from that for our own playbook, and we have to say this. We have to say, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to do what I do best. Like for me, I keep saying this, but it's kind of the blend of like, players getting full control and agency of their characters. And then in my games, they're dark, they're gritty. I explore the darker stuff. So if you want to play a nice little, like a feel good game where there really isn't much heavy conflict, my game would not be for you. I do sometimes feel like some of these more mainstream games are a little bit lighter in that sense. I think there's a space for a darker presence, to be really honest. But it's kind of hard online because on YouTube you can only do so much. Most of my games that are on YouTube, they're like they're capped at like a PG-13 rating because of that. We got Dirty Socks in the house. Hello there. What are we doing? We're doing a surprise live stream because I can't schedule these lately because my schedule's so crazy. So when I get time to sit down and do live stream, I'm doing it. Dirty Socks. How are you doing? I hope you're doing good. For everyone watching, Dirty Socks is one of our moderators, counselors in the GM Philosophy Discord. You should join us. Link to that is in the description. There's a lot of cool resources down in there. Buy my book, download my free book, join one of my games, join our Discord, be awesome like us, be cool like the cool kids. SKWPG had a question here. Part 2 of question 2. I create a campaign and I think it's dark and gritty, but the players are very jokey and they change it, so I don't like what they're doing. Continued. Okay. This is a different thing. This is actually a very different thing. Let's go on to part 3 of the question. Or half the players play it in the style I want and half are jokey and they don't mix. What do you do at that point? Okay. So here's the thing. You have 2 different options when this happens. You can either lean into saying, like, okay, I believe very much that the spotlight is on the players. The players are driving the narrative. So there's a sense, there's an element of like the players actually do decide what kind of game this is in true form. Like you can only do so much. You shape the world, you have the NPCs, but obviously what's going on right now is you are wanting a tone for your story. And the players are doing a different tone, right? It's like you were the casting director and the producer for a gritty, dark, thriller set in a fantasy world. They hired a bunch of comedy actors who are coming in and doing improv. That's the problem, right? Sometimes there can be magic there, but a lot of times it's going to be discouraging, right? You say exactly, yeah. So that's what's going to happen. And I'm going to tell you right now, you have 2 different options for this. Actually, you have 3 different options. Number 1, and this is probably my most preferred option, is you actually just talk to your players. You just straight up be very honest with them. I believe it's very respectful and good to be honest with our players when there's a problem. So you might just say, now, I really enjoy like the comedy, funny stuff, but honestly, I kind of wanted the tone of this game to be like kind of dark and gritty. And honestly, that's a session 0 thing, to really like to give them specific examples of what you do and don't want for that in session 0 is really good. That's a super good thing. And the tone that you want for the game should be made clear in session 0. With that being said, that doesn't always cover it. Sometimes they say, yeah, I like that. But what they think you're saying and what you're actually saying are 2 different things, right? And this happens. This just happens. So what you want to do is you want to have a very honest conversation with them. Say, I was hoping for this to be kind of a more serious, darker, grittier game. And here's what you're going to find. You're going to find that some gamers are not into that and some are. And gamers will tend to show you what they're into. So if they're kind of being jokey, basically comedy stuff in a game supposed to be dark and gritty, what you probably have is kind of a mismatch of styles. And the truth is that those players are probably going to continue to game in a kind of comedy-like manner. This can be difficult if you are holding the tone of your game very sacred. If you are okay with compromising on tone, then this can actually work out very good. This is an example. I gamed for years and years at my own physical table with friends, and it was very much like this. I would set like a dark, gritty tone, but then there'd be like a third of the players were very funny, and they would play kind of like these funny characters. And yeah, there'd be metal, dark moments. I will admit that having that blend sometimes took away from it for me as a game master. But see, for me, the priority was gaming with my friends, not the tone of the game. So that's another decision we have to make. What is more important to us, the tone of the game or gaming with these people? Back then, I was prioritizing the people I was playing with over tone. But nowadays, when I run the Darkest Dawn on my start playing account, when I was running the Barren Lands, tone was the most important thing. And I made it clear, clear, clear. I really hammered it in. Everything I wrote about the campaign when we did session 0, I really hammered that in, and it worked really well. The players did an amazing job of bringing in that tone. And you got to really be strong with how you're presenting your tone for your game, because you want to turn away people. Like you want the people who are not into the tone you're trying to cultivate. When they read your game, you want them to think, oh, I wouldn't want to play in that game. Like, that's how strong you have to word that. So it's like I'll say things like, if you are not into playing a serious, gritty character, if you're not into getting really into serious role play, if you're a jokester who's always kind of telling jokes and blah, 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 this is not the game for you. This is not the game for you. I think I put that kind of disclaimer in all of my game listings now, and it's for good reason. So the second thing you can do is just to go with it and just to do the best you can and roll with it and not hold the tone so reverent. The third best thing you can do is just like end the game and then like start a new game and find players who are into the tone. SKWPG says, for me, it's about tone because it's start playing. Haven't started yet, trying to get the right mix of players, including if you have already played in campaigns within VTT that want to join. That's awesome that you already have people who want to join. Yeah. So that's just first thing is, prioritizing tone or players. It sounds like you're prioritizing tone. So it's just going to be really important to make it really clear as you launch that project how you want that to look. And if you tell your players, listen, if you want to joke around, if you are going to be looking at your phone, this is a big one for me, not paying attention to the game, looking at your phones between turns, not having your turn ready, not taking the game that seriously, not tracking inventory seriously. Like, I want players to actually be invested because we're telling a story. If they're not going to do this, it's like, bro, no offense, but this is not the game for you. There are a million beer and pretzel games out there that you can play in, and they're not going to be as intense about it as I am, but I am intense about it. And that's for me. That's what I'm saying. And it sounds like you're of a similar mind. So it's just really important to make that very clear. And that solves like 99% of the problems. People who don't like that will have an aversion to your game if you make it super crystal clear. And that's what you want. you want people who are not going to take your game seriously to weed themselves out. Dirty Sock says, okay, question here. What do you think is the best skill for GM to naturally have as a soft skill? What do you mean by soft skill? Do you mean like a skill on a computer, or do you mean like I'm not quite sure what you mean by soft skill. A soft skill in the context of game mastering is any interpersonal, emotional, or cognitive ability that helps you create a better experience at the table without relying on rules, mechanics, or system mastery. By far the most important GM soft skill, I think, is kind of a blend of emotional intelligence and active listening to players, picking up on what they care about. Like, every session, if you make a list of things that you think matter the most to your players, like and I don't mean like a list of 10 things. I mean, like, what is probably the most important thing to that player, not that character, that player for that character? If you make a list of those things and then you try to come back and hit those things in the next session, you're going to blow your players' minds that you're paying attention to that. The rules don't matter for that. You can do that with any system. That's what I would say it is, because that's what it's about. Getting players to buy in so that they'll push the story for you and they'll care enough to do it. That's the whole game. SKWPG says, thank you, Stuart, from your Discord channel. Appreciate it. Post videos and more. You've been a lot of help. Cheers. Hey, thank you so much. Thanks for jumping in here and asking good questions. All right, I've got time for a couple more. I've got a couple more questions written down here. How will I maintain player agency while still shaping narrative momentum? This is one of my favorite questions, and I feel like more and more every time people ask me a question like this, they're disappointed by my answer. How will I maintain player agency? How will I give my players agency while still shaping narrative momentum? And the answer is you don't really do much shaping narrative momentum. You let the players push. They push in the direction they want to go in. What you do is you show them cool stuff, and that gives them total agency. And you remain unafraid of them going whatever direction they want to go in, because you think to yourself, that's the game. If I can get my players to go in the direction they want to go in and care about, and then I'm going to focus my attention on those things, like showing them the things they see. So it's like, they could go to this village. What are going to be the 5 things they're going to see there that could become plot arcs or could be things they care about? That's how I shape narrative, is by pitching them, not literally pitching them, but showing them like 5 potential plot arcs. Sometimes I'll show them things that I don't even mean for them to be plot arcs, but they may choose them. That's the way I shape narrative. But honestly, I don't want to shape the narrative, because that's the players. The players should push the narrative. That's my answer to that question. Okay, next question. What are my fail-safe plans for unexpected player choices, no-shows, tech failure, or session drift? This is really important. Okay. So what are my fail-safe plans for unexpected player choices, no-shows, tech failure, or session drift? These are all different things. I want to hit on 2 of these. No-shows and then player choices. Unexpected player choices, good. I think people don't like it when I talk about this too, because I lean toward improvisation. I love to improv. I feel like that's where my hot zone is. I feel like the 10 best sessions I ever ran in my career have all been improv heavy sessions. Think I like your own questions more than mine. Oh, thank you. Well, these are questions that I've been thinking about that I think are really important as we move into 2026. By the way, for those of you who maybe are jumping in late, make sure to check the links down in the description. Buy my book. If you like my style of emotional resonance, if you like things I talk about, I go really in depth in my philosophies, tactics, concepts in my book, The Advanced Art of TTRPG Game Mastery. Link to that is in the description. Buy my top 10 or get my free top 10 tips ebook. Link to that is in the description. Join one of my games. Link to that is in the description. And if you want to buy me a coffee and support the channel, you can also do that in my coffee link down in the description. All kinds of cool stuff down there and good resources. Okay. And join the Discord. It's free. And we are over 500 GMs strong at this point. Okay. When players make unexpected choices, when they make unexpected choices, good. We say, awesome. They're going off the path we planned. This is really good. Do you know why this is good? Because they care enough to do something that isn't just mindless. Because the truth is, the easiest thing for them to do is just kind of fall in line with your written plan. And we all know we present things to them and they can follow it, and that could turn into a linear path. Okay. Some GMs really lean into that. They want their players to go down the linear path. I say, why? Why would you want that? Because the game really takes shape when the players choose their own destiny. This is going to force you to improvise a little bit. It's going to force you to change your plans. But I think this is the way the games go from mediocre to extraordinary. I think this is also how we become better game masters. So when players make unexpected choices, think to yourself, good, they're taking initiative. They care so much about this game and they're getting so into it that they're going in a different direction. They're actually doing brain work to go in a different direction. I should celebrate this and reward them with some awesome improv. So boom, that's what I say about that. I feel like people don't like it when I say that, but that's the truth of it. And then no shows. I firmly believe that we should plan ahead and work mechanics into our game to deal with this, because this can be really tricky. I've seen GMs do this in a lot of different ways. What I do in my home world of Regenesis, there is a phenomenon called the convergence. And what this is are basically realms, timelines, different planes are kind of colliding into each other, and they cause these rifts and cracks. And sometimes there's this light that shines down and it takes players up. And basically, if they get taken up randomly by a convergence when they're not there, their player literally just isn't there. And then the convergence beams them back in when they show back up. And it's just a mechanic that solves a lot of issues and a lot of headaches. It beams them with all their gear. I encourage all game masters to find a mechanic that works for them. I am not always a big fan of the, like, kind of just the characters running on autopilot. That, to me, that kind of can hurt immersion a little bit. And I also think that players, like, there's kind of a sacredness to a player playing their character, and having the GM run their character on autopilot feels a little bit irreverent to me. That's just how I feel. That doesn't mean that I'm criticizing GMs who do it that way, because a lot of GMs do it that way, and it does make sense. Sometimes that makes more sense than having their players disappear or go on a side quest. Sometimes it doesn't really work. Sometimes it does work. Whatever. But anyway, those are my fail-safe plans that I use for those things. Tech failure just sucks, man. I should always try to have a backup internet option. Like, I have a hotspot on my phone, and I think if my internet failed, I could, like, connect to my phone. That sucks, though. It really sucks. Dirty Sock says, in a world where every moral choice can be quantified and gamified, do you think players would start valuing the score over actual ethical reasoning? I think what players value is, like, what they care about their character, right? So in a world where every moral choice can be quantified and gamified, which it can be, do I think players would start valuing the score over ethical reasoning? I don't know that players care a lot about the ethical reasoning, like, unless they actually care. I don't think they care about it for the sake of caring about it. It's like, oh, that's the ethical thing, that's what I should care about. I think if they're running a lawful evil player and they've set out to do some lawful evil things, then when they look at the ethics of, like, oh, is this a good thing in the game to do, is not going to be as important as what is the lawful evil thing to do, because I really want to play lawful evil and I want this character to be this, like, evil guy, right? So it's like, I think that's what they care the most about, because they care about what they care about, right? And sometimes that means score. That might mean winning combats, but that also might mean that, maybe the common sense thing would be for them to gather all that loot and sell it at the next stop and get all that gold and then buy new armor. Maybe they blow all their gold on rum, though, and they flirt with the barmaids. And that's because that's what their character would do. I one time role played a character going on a 4-day drinking binge as he mourned the death of his 2 fallen comrades. Was that, like, the smartest way to game? No. Like, he lost out on some opportunities. He spent too much money. He didn't get in for those 4 days, but that was what I wanted to do with him, because that was me role playing the character. So good question. Super good question. Follow up. And if so, does that make TTRPGs more like philosophy experiments or less? I think it makes them more like philosophy experiments. It makes them like a human. It is like an experiment, because humans get to role play through things that they never encounter in real life. Like, I'm never going to probably face in my life the circumstances of being involved in a cannibal cult. Like, this is something I'm probably never, ever going to experience in real life. Have experienced it more than once in D&D. Got to role play how different characters, some of them slightly different versions of myself, because there's also a point to where our characters all kind of like a little bit of a version of us, a little bit. That's not 100% true all the time, but sometimes that's the truth. So it's like, I've gotten to role play through that. Now, is that the same thing as living through it? No. But is it closer than never ever role playing through it? Yes. So that's my answer. D&D is so awesome. I love TTRPGs. And there's also an element of that to where they become therapeutic for working through things. I've worked through a lot of existential angst running NPCs who are racked by existential dread, because in real life, I am racked by existential dread, especially I used to be it's not as big a deal now. But for a while, there's a good deal of my life where I had a hard time with that. Have to blast, but thanks for the impromptu Q&A. Enjoy the coffee. Have a great night. Hey, thank you so much, SK, WPG. I really appreciate you. Thanks for jumping in, and thanks for hanging out with us. And it looks like you donated a coffee. Thank you so much. That's super nice of you. I really appreciate that. I'm going to get me an iced coffee for sure. Coffee is the new thing now. I've got to watch the calories. Got the sugar-free energy drink. No more sodas. I've been drinking too much Coca-Cola. Can't be doing that. I got to get in the 6-pack club, ladies and gentlemen. I got to be in the six. My 6-pack game's got to level up. Right now, I have something larger than a 6-pack. I've got the chubby pack, but that's okay. We're getting there. All right. Last question. I have time for one more. How will I solicit and act on feedback from players moving into the future? Okay, here's the thing. I think we need to normalize GameMasters actively having a debriefing session after the game. As I get back into running games, I think that this is such a fun thing. Me and my friends used to do this. When we get done with the session, we weren't done hanging out. We would get done with the session, and then we would all, grab another snack, and we'd hang out for another hour just talking about the game. I know that not everyone has that kind of time, but that was so valuable because they would say things like, dude, why did that happen? And that, I'm not going to lie, that was frustrating when so-and-so happened. Like, they would give me real-time feedback, and this was so valuable. I wish that more Game Masters hosted like a after game debriefing session where it's just chilling, hanging out. You turn on the music, you just chilling, have a drink or two, and then you're just, talking about the game. What mattered to everyone? What was everyone's favorite part? What was the part that was most frustrating for them? This is what I think is the future of this. GMs making it, a normal part of the game to have a debriefing meeting session after the game, I think is what is going to be the new normal. I think in 2026, that's going to be the new way to do it. All right, friends, I have to bounce. I have 9 minutes before my next appointment. So thank you all for hanging out with me. I really appreciate all of you. I will catch you all probably tomorrow at some point on a live stream. When will it be? Probably earlier in the day because I work in the afternoon and evening tomorrow. So boom. Early afternoon, look for a live stream. I'll catch you all there. Have a great one. Roll a few D100s for me. Empowering Game Masters to run better games is the goal of the channel. I'll see you awesome people on the next one.